Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about somebody that I think is so amazing. I just had to show you her chart, and as well, she's going to be participating in the Olympics, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But who am I looking at today is the gymnast Simone Biles. I think that this woman is, and I'm not alone, the most talented gymnast, athlete, woman athlete I have ever seen. In my opinion, she breaks all the records. She is beyond talent. She does things that are unhuman. She flies through the air and flips and twists, and it's just astounding to watch her. And I don't know why she has to participate in the Olympics. I guess just for everyone to see this amazing show. But to me, she's already proven that she is the greatest gymnast of all time. So with that, let's look at her chart. Before we do so, let me remind everyone to check out my website. Go to galacticcenter.org, sign up for my free newsletter, as well as check out my Patreon page, become part of a spiritual community, as well as don't forget my Galactic Planner, where it calculates your personal chart and you'll get predictions for you individually. I wrote all of the translations, and let me just say this, the first month is free. Why wouldn't you try it? So go to galacticplanner.com. And remember, I'm starting my school this month, the University of Vedic Astrology. Become an astrologer and my student. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com. All right, let's look at Simone's chart. Pulling it up here, this young lady is 27 years old. This is unheard of that she can do what she's doing even at that age, because I was under the assumption that all the gymnasts that I have seen were like 14. And I gotta say, I used to be a ballet dancer in a ballet company. I was a teenager. That was the only time that your body, I thought, was that supple and, able to do what she does at age 27. That's way beyond the limits, I believe, of this type of athlete, as well as, a dancer or a gymnast. So she breaks all the records in my book. And let's put up her chart. She's a native Texan. She lives in Texas like I do. She was born in Ohio, and when she came into this world, her mother was unable to take care of her, and she was put in foster care. So she had a rough start in this world, but what a talent she is. Look at her chart now. She's got a Scorpio rising, and Scorpios ruled by Mars. Mars deals with athletes and sports. So looking at where her Mars sits, it's in the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of great gains. In Vedic astrology, we call it an Upachaya house, which means that over time you get better and better and better at what you're doing. So you put Mars there, and Ketu and Rahu tie up with Saturn and Mars, but Rahu magnifies things. So of course you've got Mars with Rahu here, the same degree. That means it multiplies the effects of Mars' ability to make her an athlete. It's in Virgo, which Virgo is the sign of perfection. I gotta say, her work is perfection. She is beyond belief in what she does. This is amazing. So putting Mars and Rahu, they're actually two natural malefics in a chart. In the 11th house is the best place it can actually be. Why? Because the 11th house deals specifically with improvement. And it's the highest of the improvement houses called Upachaya. So this is probably why she's gone on over time and can continue in a field that she should be over the age limit, but she keeps going and gets better and better. This girl is just beyond human belief, in my opinion. Watching her at the Olympics is going to be fun. But I'll tell you, she's got some difficult aspects a little bit around the time of the Olympics. I'm going to talk about this. So looking at what opposes Mars is Saturn. So her Saturn sits opposite Mars in Pisces, and it is with K2. This is not an easy aspect. I often call Saturn K2 a curse and a blessing. So, her life started out extremely rough. But hey, it is Saturn in the 5th house, and the 5th house is talent. And Saturn has given her a great deal of discipline to develop this incredible talent. And whenever I see Mars and Saturn in opposition or conjunction, it indicates someone that never gives up. Somebody that no matter how many times they get knocked down, they get back up and they keep trying again. So I always call the Saturn-Mars aspect, conjunction or opposition, the key to success. Because no matter how many times you get knocked down, if you keep getting up and redoing it and trying, you're going to be successful one of the times. And it looks like she has overcome great obstacles. And even Saturn, K2, and Mercury together in the 5th house. The 5th house is also intelligence, and it's the mind. And it does mean that she mentally has been tormented with Saturn K2 in the 5th house of the mind. And yes, one of the Olympics, I think the time before, she pulled out because she said she had issues with her mind. Mentally, she couldn't go on. And she pulled out, but she's back. Now, Mercury with K2 actually is the indication of somebody that's incredibly intuitive and psychic. So she's got some deep intuition. She knows things that she probably doesn't reveal, and especially even being in the sign of Pisces. She's very kind-hearted, but very intuitive and very psychic. So notice that she's got Saturn K2 and Mars Rahu. This is really difficult. Her life has been a struggle, but oh my God, she has made it in her field. And as I said, the Saturn K2 is a curse and a blessing. And you know what I've found with people with Saturn K2? Many times the parents split or a parent dies. Something to that effect happens. Because it is a really harsh aspect. But Mars aspecting the Saturn K2 even makes it more of a challenge. She has really built herself up and overcome obstacles that is beyond belief. And that's actually what the Saturn K2 opposing Mars Rahu means. That's who she is. Now, another thing is, I've noticed people that have Jupiter conjunct Uranus. There is always something brilliant about them. And their life is shocking, with major highs and lows, with sudden events that are unbelievable. And she's got it in the 3rd house. Now the 3rd house is the house of talent too. The 5th and the 3rd represent talent. She's got Jupiter, which rules the 5th, going to the 3rd, and that represents talent. And many times entertainers have that aspect. Many times entertainers have a connection between houses 5 and 3. Because the 5th house is actually the 3rd from the 3rd. So it deals with creative talent, just like the 3rd house. So, but thinking about that, you know, being a gymnast, you are a performer, you're an entertainer. People watch, and to their amazement, they're entertained by your gift, your talent, and abilities, which I promise you, we will be with her in the Olympics. She is just beyond belief. That's what I'm going to say. So, so looking at this chart, she has the moon in Taurus, in Critica, in the 7th house. Now remember, I've said before, Critica can deal with some anger issues. So this is a touchy place for the moon, but the moon is exalted in Taurus, so it does sit in a beautiful, beautiful position. So I love that moon in Taurus, and it's in her 7th house. This could even reflect into her marriage partner. I know she's married, I believe, to a football player, professional football player. And people have asked, now how does it feel to have your wife be a better athlete than you? And I haven't gotten the answer from him on that, but she is record-breaking, truly. So her moon sits in the 7th house. That could be her partnership. Now, looking at where her Sun and her Venus sit, they sit in the 4th house of home and family. And actually her Sun, which sits at 29 degrees, is at a critical degree. And the Sun being in Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. So you revert to that Saturn being aspected by Mars and Rahu Ketu. So this can reflect the problems she had in the home. And actually, wherever the Sun is in your chart, people don't realize this, can be a problem. The Sun is a malefic in Vedic astrology. And what I think it means is it's overpowering. So just realize you can't look at the Sun. It will hurt your eyes. And so wherever it goes, it's overpowering with people that it rules. So the 4th house rules her mother, and the Sun is the father. So her parents did not get along, and she had issues and problems with her mother. Venus being there can mean she lives in a beautiful home. Yeah, most of the time that's what Venus in the 4th will bring. A beautiful home, a love of decorating. I'm sure her home is magnificent, and it's full of art with Venus being in the 4th house. Now she does have Venus combust the Sun, which will cause some relationship issues. She's going to have to work hard to keep her relationships together with this. Or it could simply mean that she had problems with relationships before she met and married her husband. Now, one thing I will say about the Saturn K2 in the 5th house, it will be hard for her to have children. So if she continues being an athlete like this and not taking time off to have children, then that might not be for her. But there are Saturn K2 plus Mars and Rahu aspecting the 5th house. I don't think she wants to have children. So we'll see about that. Now, let's look at what's going on. Now, I pulled up the chart. Let me put the chart up over here of the day that the Olympics start. The Olympics start July 26, 2024 in Paris, France. And I noticed that they will begin around 1:30 in the afternoon. So I pulled up a chart for the beginning of the Olympics to see how the Olympics are going to go, because so many people are concerned with it being in Paris and all the problems they had with air conditioning and the dirty water in the rivers. So let's see what we can see about the Olympics. And you know, pulling up this chart, the moon sits with Rahu, so there's so much anticipation and intense events around the Olympics. That's what I'm getting. The Mars-Jupiter conjunction could mean violence going on around, and Uranus is already at 2 degrees in Taurus. All this energy in Taurus is scary. It really is. And K2 sits close to the ascendant, which means there's something that's just not seen or right. about what's going on. Saturn's in the 6th house, so there can be some struggles with trying to keep everything together there and keep it safe and all. But overall, now I could be wrong about this, but I'm thinking that with the Mars and Jupiter together, it's not easy. There could be some breakouts of violence, but overall, I think it'll be okay. I don't see like any exact terrible aspects, but Rahu with the moon can mean there are some extreme events happening around, I think, the Olympics in Paris. That's what I'll say, okay? But let's throw those planets of where they are at the time of the Olympics into Simone's chart to see how she's going to perform during the Olympics. And I don't even think she needs to be in the Olympics anymore. She's the best of the best. Why does she have to? But she must love what she does. And to be that good in something, you have to love what you do. And when you love what you do, you're the best. So, of course she wants to perform. She doesn't want to give it up when you're the best of the best. I mean, it's just awesome to watch her perform. But looking at this, I couldn't help but notice that Rahu will be exactly on her Saturn in the 5th house. The 5th house, remember, is the mind. And also Saturn rules the 3rd, which can be our talent. And it also rules the 4th, which can be our security. She doesn't feel safe, I'll tell you that right now. And there's some things of a crisis going on around her. Maybe this is just her emotions, but she is having a difficult time with Rahu on her Saturn. And yes, this is exact at this time. So when I look at it from Chandra Lagna, meaning from the moon, this goes to the 11th house, which actually is quite nice because the malefic Saturn Ketu go to the 11th house, and that makes it stronger. But let me just say this, she doesn't have a lot of friends because Mars, Rahu are in her 11th house, which is friends also, from the ascendant, but going from the moon, Saturn Ketu go to the 11th house from the moon. So here's the thing. When you're in a competitive sport like this, and especially women, trust me, I know, you're never going to be friends because you're always competing with the other women for the same parts, for the same positions, like in ballet, you're competing against the others for certain parts or scholarships or all of the above. You're always in competition with your friends because when you're in this field, the only people you hang around with, because you're practicing morning, noon, and night. It's the only place you are. You're practicing, and that's tough. So let me just say, you're not going to have a lot of really deep, good-hearted friends because there's so much jealousy. That's what it is, okay? With Rahu being on her Saturn in the 11th house from the moon, but it's in the 5th house of her mind. So something's really bothering her at the time. Let me just say that. And I also put Saturn into the mix. Looking at where Saturn's sitting at 24 degrees of Aquarius, sits right smack dab on her Venus in the 4th house of her home, her family, and most of all, Venus rules the 7th house of her husband. So they're separate during this time. She can't give him any attention during this time. She's got to be practicing morning, noon, and night till the end of the Olympics. So they're separate. You could say that maybe they're having some relationship issues as well, but it's probably just because they're not together. And maybe he's there watching her, but there's little time spent to be together. It's all about this competition at this time for her. and Saturn on her Venus is another tough aspect. And if we're looking from Chandra Lagna, the moon, then the Saturn Sun is in her 10th house from her moon, but Saturn sits on her Venus, which would be the ruler of the chart from the moon, and it rules the 6th house from the moon, which could be accidents. So she's in a critical position that she could have an accident during this incredible pull, because here's one last thing I'm going to mention, if I still have you here, because it's probably only the die-hard astrologers that are still watching, but transiting Mars will be right on her moon in the 7th house. There can be an argument with her spouse, argument with partners. I'm telling you, Mars is exact on this day. It's 9 degrees and her moon sits at 8 degrees, 46 minutes, almost 9 degrees. So emotionally, she's a mess. Mars is on her moon, but Jupiter is there giving great protection. And the 7th house is an angle. But I gotta say, with Mars being there, she's prone to accidents. With Saturn, with Rahu on her Saturn, prone to accidents. Saturn's on her Venus, there can be something that causes a setback or a delay. I hope this is all wrong, because I want to see her perform at her very best. But one thing I can say, Saturn does give discipline and focus when it's used correctly. And Saturn is on her Venus. And from the moon, her Venus goes to the 10th house. Which the 10th house, by the way, is your social standing, your reputation, and your eye, where everyone can see you publicly. It's your career. So Saturn there can give her her just rewards. Saturn's karma. And if she's worked her tail off, which obviously she has or she wouldn't be that good, she'll get her just rewards. Saturn can bring our rewards and satisfaction of a job well done from the hard work and discipline that it brings us in our lives. And heaven knows she is disciplined. So Jupiter at 19 degrees of Taurus is in her 7th house. It's already crossed over her moon, and it is aspecting her natal Jupiter. Yes, it's trining her natal Jupiter in the 3rd, which can make her more agile and more opportunities for doing things well, being the best at what she does. And another aspect, and then I'll give my ending. Neptune has been crossing over her K2 in the 5th house. Neptune is deception and denial and deceit. There's something she can't see that's going on. I almost wonder if it's anything to do with her partnerships or her friends. But there's something with Neptune on K2 that's an illusion that she cannot see. And this goes on for about a year. So she needs to do something to stay mentally fit and not get persuaded into illusionary things. But all at the same time, this can really bring out her psychic ability. So she has really got some insights. So if she ever hears this, I hope she hears me say this, that to listen to her intuition, because you're absolutely right about something. Because our mental mind will talk us out of it. But when Neptune is doing its number on any planet in our chart, it will reveal something that we haven't known about, but we need to know about. So that's what I'll leave you with. I think she is spectacular. I'm going to be rooting for her. I want her to win. because she deserves to, because she is the best. The only thing that can prevent her from winning, I think, is trying too hard and trying to do things that are way, 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 way too hard, that are impossible, and maybe she flubs up on the timing or the landing or something like that. But oh my God, what a talent. She is beyond belief. So let's watch and let's root for Simone in the Olympics. So thank you for watching. Remember, if this sparked any interest in wanting to learn astrology, remember my school is starting now. So get with it. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com and become my student. Thank you.